Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to tackle an issue that I've been putting off for way too long, and that's fixing the air suspension on the Bentley. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, John Engel here, and I've got some great news. Today we're going to fix that by installing a brand new double dome. So today we're going to do an oil change and replace those.
So unfortunately with the Bentleys, they have an air suspension, and it's not if it's going to break, it's just when. It's basically a balloon, and over time that balloon gets dry rotted and air starts leaking out. So it's something that's going to be tackled on any Bentley Continental GT, but mine is time for that. And I've been trying to figure out the best way to do it. I did buy a new, oh god, this thing is quite large, new strut, which is basically the everything all into one. And we're going to be putting this onto the passenger side. Now, I do agree with you. Yes, I should be replacing both, but I want to make sure that I know what I'm doing and that that is the problem. Now, I'll take you through how I determined it was the passenger side. And I think that that's the only side, but I want to make sure. So let's go through that process right now. So when I came out, I obviously noticed that that wheel is underneath the fender. Now, if I was to turn that wheel, it would definitely crack the fender, probably have some issue with the bumper there. So you want to make sure you don't do that. There is a fault on the display that says do not drive suspension too low. I'll take you in the back here, show you how I've got this set up as well. All right, back here in the trunk, I've got a battery maintainer hooked to one battery and another one hooked to the other one. That way I can keep my 12 volts perfect in there and not have to worry about that, because, well, I will tell you, having low voltage on these cars can cause all types of trouble. So that's not an issue right now. So over here on the passenger side, this is where I think I have a faulty strut. And the reason why I think that is when I turn the car on, you can see that this is the top of the strut, and it's got a little rubber grommet that should be over it, but I pulled that off, and there's air leaking from here. So I believe there's a fitting or some seal that has gone bad with this. But basically what I'm going to have to do is disconnect this connector, undo this bolt, and there's one back there, and then that will allow this to come out. We're going to remove the wheel and then everything that goes on under there. I guess there's nothing else to do but to get started. All right, I'm coming from the future to talk to you in the past, meaning I've already got the suspension working. However, I do want to make sure and make a note that you lift both front wheels. If you only lift one, like I did in the beginning, the sway bar does not allow for full motion. So you've got to have the front end off the ground, so you'll have to have a jack on this side to lift it off the ground, and then a jack over on the other side if you're not doing it on a two-post lift. So make sure the front end is off the ground. It makes your life a ton easier. All right, back to me working and sweating, and it was not fun. All right, guys, it's another day. It's a different outfit. I have been procrastinating on doing this because, well, I am scared that it's not gonna fix it and then I'll just be upset, but I've got to get to it because I want to drive the car. It is such a good car, such a good driving car, that I hope that this will go fairly smoothly. So let's take a wheel off. See how this goes. There we go. Well, now we can see everything under here, and there's a lot of stuff under here. So let's take a look and see what we've got going on. So I guess the first thing to do is get some light under here, which definitely helped. You can see the green wire, which is our air tube. I'm going to remove it from the clip and then use a 10mm wrench to get that off of the top, and we'll do that right now. There we go. Now, on this, there's actually two pieces. We don't want to lose either of them in case we need them, I'm not sure. But you can see one is a bite and one is the actual screw part or bolt part, and that basically creates that so it's an airtight seal once that goes into that housing. So for right now, we're just going to put that over to the side. We don't need that right now. So you stay over here. Okay guys, so looking at the wheel height sensor, and this is the arm that attaches to the wheel height sensor, which is right here.
You can see that it's a bolt that goes straight through the hole at the bottom of the control arm. Here's a 10mm nut that goes on there. The only thing is when you start taking it off, this thing does rotate. You can see it's got a flat side on it right there. Hold it with some pliers and you're able to get that off. So now that's out of our way. We can now move back, and also I did put the jack stand underneath the control arm. So now we can work on these top bolts. More light. Gotta love it when nothing works right. We'll see. There we go. Now remember, these are 16mm bolts up here. I've got one ratchet on one side, one on the other. Let's see. All right, that one's out. All right, guys, so it's really not tricky. It's just in an awkward place. This is 18mm, and so is the nut that's on the other side. Now, I wasn't able to get a socket on the other side. I had to use an adjustable crescent wrench, which was fine. It held it in place. And then I just went to town on this, and it just slowly starts coming out. This is also why we have this down here, so that when we lower it all down, it'll come out of place. And for right now, I think we're about ready to lower it down, but first we just got to remove this all the way, and I think it's just going to take a little persuading. Alright guys, I will tell you the hardest part so far has been getting these out of here. And this whole assembly, much heavier than it looks, even though it's still supported over here, and it's still supported down here. We're going to get this off now, but I will tell you, once these come loose and you've got these out, this thing is a ton. These are a pain to get out, and the only way I was able to do it was with one of these. And it just hammers those right out. Now getting these back in is going to be a pain. All right, all we can do is keep going. All right, so you can see I have one T55 there, one right here. There's our actual shock or strut going in, and then right where that extension is going down is your third one. It's kind of covered, so I wanted you to be able to see that. We did have to disconnect this wire from here, and all you do is stick a screwdriver right in there. You can see that little flap, push up, pulls out, no problem. So now we've got to get these three off. That will allow this whole assembly to come out and come down finally. The one thing when you're removing these that you don't want to do is lose a big old washer-o. See, this should really be used with an impact gun. And that is what I did not want to do. You do not want to lose stuff in there with the world watching. And the longest pliers ever. Oh, like a game of Operation. All right, guys, so you can see that this is where the bolt goes and the washer lays in that cavity. Once the washer is in that cavity, it aligns that center point so that your suspension is sitting in there correctly. Very cool, very wise. I like that. Still going to be a pain in the butt, I'm sure, but at least we know what we're doing. See if this will work. There we go. Here we go. There we go. All right. All right, what is holding us up here? I got wires in the back there. That's no problem. There we go. I feel like, oh, of course something caught. And there we go. She is out. I cannot tell you how happy I am to have this out of the car right now. So now what we have to do is this housing actually gets transferred to the new strut, and these are 13mm bolts right here, and we will do 4 of them. Now, the only thing that I think that we need to make sure of is when we take this off, that the orientation of this shock, notice how the reservoir is on this side, I need to do, and this is the brand new one, and basically just rotate it over when I put it in so that there is no issues with bitment. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and bust these off, transfer them to the new one, and then we'll be ready to basically do everything in reverse and install. All right guys, notice that the suspension over here is now lifted. That would have been the easy way to get the other strut off. So now with it lifted, this wheel, or well, the rotor and whole assembly, goes down much farther. You are able then to push this up in fairly easily. This spot still is a little challenging. However, you want to go up first. Go ahead and put in all of the bolts so that it's holding in place, and then you can start tightening these. Once that's tightened, this will start to slip in place basically over here and kind of slide on. Now once we get all of this up, we'll be able to adjust it. Which means I'm going to connect the hose, tighten up everything on top, and start to lift this suspension up. See, everything is back together. These are 16mm bolts down here. If I can get there, on the bottom, there. That's an 18mm bolt and nut on both sides, so that. Down here we put back our height sensor, and that is a 10mm bolt on the other side, which you can't see. We have used our Torx T55 to put all of these 3 back on. We have connected our connector. We put a new seal back here where you can't even really see anymore, but we did put a new seal on it, and that is all connected, and we are good there. Technically, at this point, everything can go back on, and I could start the car and see if this worked. I will give you some helpful hints, because this was not easy to get back on, and I had to figure out how to kind of clamp it back down. And of course, if you're going to clamp something back down, use a big clamp. So this C-clamp will actually basically go like this. And then you can just clamp it down and it'll go back on. Once that bolt goes through, you know that it's seated because there are slots in there for that bolt, because that holds that all together. And then you tighten that down and you're good. It sounds a lot easier than it was because I was one person. I had to jack up the bottom here. So I used the control arm underneath, jacked this all up, had to swing this around to get these in. Once they're in, then I could clamp it down. I did not enjoy this as much as I thought that I would. This was a tedious kind of fighting with everything, and I didn't enjoy that part. But let's put the wheel on and see if all of our struggle was worth it. Well guys, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I am exhausted. It's been about 4 hours it took me to do this job. Way longer than it should have, but now we have to actually try it out and see if it works. And even if it doesn't work, I'm done for today. Hopefully it does. I'm going to try to turn on auxiliary power and see if that will inflate everything. Let's try that. Maybe I got to step on the brake. Nope. Let's try. All right, we're going to go full power. It is slowly raising. I might have fixed this. Oh my God. After all of this work, if this is actually raising the car and fixing it, that means I did something right. I have no idea what I was really doing. Good. Yes. I actually have clearance. Oh. So it's actually working. It's holding air. I turned it off to see if it goes down because that means we still have a leak. I don't know what to tell you guys, but I'm super excited that this actually worked and I fixed it. This was a lot more work, a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. And not because it takes like a rocket scientist to decode what's going on. Suspension work always is more difficult. It's bigger parts, bigger bolts, and you have to really have some muscle and energy to do it, and I'm getting old. But I will say that if I had a 2-post car lift, it would have made it easier, though I wouldn't have been able to get to it because the front suspension was down.
Anyway, this is a huge relief for me that my car is actually back working. I can now drive this car again. I've been missing it in the rotation of what I've been using. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have this car back. Its suspension is finally up, so that means I can drive it again. I have missed this car so much. Out of all of the cars that I have, this is one that I truly enjoy driving. The Bentley is one of the best bangs for the buck. I really love this car. Now, there are a few things that you need to remember, and that is that you need to have both front wheels off of the ground. That way the sway bar will allow both front suspension to sway, obviously, and it will allow you to get that strut in much easier. So definitely have both wheels off the ground. Using the air hammer removed that front knuckle so much easier. And then when you're putting that knuckle back together using that 6-inch clamp, a lot of this stuff is in the description below if you need to buy a 6-inch clamp, the O-rings that are used for the air suspension, or that T55 Torx bit. I put all of that in the description because, well, it makes it a lot easier if you have all of those things from the beginning. Anyway, I am super excited. I finally got all clean. I'm ready to take her out for her maiden voyage after being up for a while. Hopefully this has helped you. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. We'll catch you next time. Whew, that was a lot of work.